Special Board of Education meeting on safety, our second such work session to examine how we keep students safe from danger and from doubt. I'm going to call on our treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Vice President Cole.
Present.
Ms. Gibbs.
Here.
Ms. Hudson.
Here.
Mr. Peretti. Ms. Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Tonight we have the pleasure of having community voices and our district staff together working collaboratively here at Ohio Avenue Elementary. And having said that, I would like to recognize Principal Olympia Williams and ask her and her delegation from the school to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I think I saw her come in. If not, somebody go find her.
She's right there.
There she is. Lord, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Principal Williams. Thank you for hosting us here this evening at the wonderful Ohio Avenue. As I mentioned, this is our second work session on community safety. The board's first work session last month, held at Northland High School, was productive in demonstrating that safety is a priority in all that we do as a district, as we strive to better serve our students and their families. We've made measurable gains in creating safer school climates, yet we also know that the dangers our students face are not limited to one type, nor limited to just the time they spend in our buildings. So tonight, we continue our discussion by working to identify the risks and gaps in the greater community safety net. We'll ask our superintendent to set the stage, reviewing some of the major discussion points from our last meeting and connecting those points to tonight's dialogue. We'll then have staff share additional insight into our district's efforts to address the social and emotional safety needs of our students. We're also joined by some of our partner organizations that provide support to our students and staff here tonight. I look forward to hearing from them. Then we'll proceed into a series of roundtable conversations where our board members will be joined by staff and our community audience so we can hear all voices in the room this evening. With that, I expect and know tonight will be a productive work session, recognizing that none of us can do this work alone. Like education, safety is truly everyone's concern. Mr. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board, and thank you to Principal Olympia Williams and the Ohio Avenue faculty and staff. This building and its academic and social emotional achievement and the gains they've made in each of those areas are truly a model for our district. At the start of our first work session last month, I shared my belief that any commitment to keeping students safe from both danger and doubt requires a constant vigilance. The risks and threats our students face are not singular in nature, nor are they sedentary. They are physical and cognitive, social and emotional, direct and indirect, in our buildings and in our neighborhoods, and are always changing. These conversations about student safety are bold and revealing, sharing numbers and data and information that most other districts might fear to provide publicly. But if we truly want to move our district to next and become a model for others on creating the greatest opportunities for our students to learn and grow in the safest and the most supportive environments possible, then we cannot shy away from these difficult conversations. Nor can we believe that our actions alone, one meeting, one policy change, or even one partnership, will suddenly eliminate all of the threats and risks. We need partners, and we need action. In our previous work session, the head of our Safety and Security Office, Director Chris Ward, shared some tremendous insight and illustrative numbers on the security investments throughout our operations, the largest of Central Ohio's districts. As he shared, we often ask our safety and security personnel in partnership with the Columbus Police Department and our administrative teams to respond to a variety of challenges each day. The work is proactive, leading safety drills and crisis planning, but it's also reactive, responding when called to threats and hazards at schools, administrative buildings, and other district properties. Our officers investigate school-based incidents and school bus accidents and provide security during athletic events, school activities, and community-based programs. In the coming years, we are set to expand the size of our safety team, a result of voter approval of our recent levy request. And we are expanding the tools they use, including the launch of our LobbyGuard visitor management system and new infrastructure improvements aimed at better protecting our buildings from dangers outside of them. I appreciate how our board recognizes that while Chris's team is the only office that has safety in its title, safety is an integral part of every job, every office in this district. That's why during the last session, we invited you to take a special data walk to engage and interact with several of our other offices to hear relevant data on several safety measures. In those conversations, we established how we've made measurable gains in creating safer school climates with fewer expulsions and out-of-school suspensions. You also heard, however, that many dangers continue outside our control. Those students encounter as they walk to school, travel by bus, and interact within their neighborhoods where sometimes the crime statistics can be overwhelming. And some dangers need greater exploration, such as the impacts of bullying and family violence, or when students need a caring adult to stand in their corners without judgment, or simply find themselves struggling to understand their own emotions and thoughts. In each of your packets, I've added a copy of the recent article from the Columbus Dispatch that profiled two of our high schools, Northland and Whetstone, where students and staff dealt with doubts and fear that can come after tragic incidents. The article provides a look at the dedicated and often rapidly required work of our care teams, counselors and social workers in our Office of Student and Family Engagement. Tonight we will further explore the reactive efforts of our care teams, but first I'd like to spend just a few moments examining the proactive efforts of our mentoring program. We know that far too many children in our community are caught in a whirlpool of poverty, struggling families, self-destructive behavior, yet I believe, and data and history back it up, that children can escape that whirlpool if there are enough caring adults ready to stand in their corners, not to judge them, but to encourage them, to offer both an ear to their concerns and a voice to their inspirations. So tonight we begin our safety conversation by taking a closer look at the ambitious mentoring effort launched by our district this year, led by Dr. Keisha Hunley-Jenkins, Senior Director in our Office of Mentoring and Student Initiatives. Keisha, would you please begin your presentation?
Thank you, Dr. Good. Good evening. Okay, trying to make sure I'm on the right slide. Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to share the work of the Office of Student Mentoring Initiatives, also known as OSMI. Please allow me to introduce my two colleagues who round out the mentoring team. I have Mr. Greg Gillum and Mr. Steve Stevenson. I'm thankful for them. Without them, the work wouldn't be possible. So before we get started, could you please just indulge me for a second and visualize a couple of folks who have impacted you during your lifetime. It could have been someone who helped you course correct, somebody who opened doors or a pathway to different possibilities for you. I just want you to think about that person, someone who poured into you and invested in you. Do you guys have those people in mind? All right, please keep that in mind as we watch the following video.
I wanted to be a part of the program because I believe in giving back.
It's so joyous to see a young person going down one path and knowing that you were able to influence changing the trajectory of the path they were on.
Was I nervous about meeting my mentor? Yes. Because at first I thought, she was just going to be another adult to just push me around, tell me what to do, and do it like this, and you need to study that. But that wasn't what it was at all.
My mentee hadn't experienced much commitment from adults in his young life. And so that allowed him to develop some trust and open up and share not just what was going on with school, but what barriers that he was challenging within his home life.
She treated me like I was a family member. She was just so caring and there for me. and I feel like I can go to her for anything.
You really don't realize what you're going to get out of it until the program is over and you hear the feedback or you see the individual that you're working with move towards those goals or go in a more positive direction than maybe they would have been going on before they had the interaction with you.
What I got out of the mentoring program was a new friend and somebody I could talk to.
I guess I would say it helped me grow as a person and see the goodness that I didn't see in myself.
If you care and you have a story, please come be a mentor.
Okay. So that was a video of some of our participants from last year, both mentors and mentees, that we partnered with the city to make that video. So I was happy to be able to share that with you. But this video and these quotes further demonstrate that relationships equal success. And that's why mentoring is so important to the human experience. And that's why the district is trying to make sure that our students have more positive and supportive relationships in their lives to help them on their path to success. During tonight's presentation, and I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that you keep, I didn't realize there wasn't going to be a screen up here, so you'll want to keep looking up there. So tonight's presentation will cover 5 different topics. It'll be a quick overview of our office, then we'll share our 15-16 program goals and outcomes, then we'll roll into our 16-17 program and operational goals, then I'll share with you how we would love to have your help engaging in this work, and finally we're happy to field any questions that you may have. So quickly, our office was established in November of 15 as a tool to further address students' social emotional learning needs. Cheryl Ward will share more about the other district SEL supports in her upcoming presentation. Our work, though, to make sure that every student eventually has a quality mentoring experience will be a combination of utilizing internal programs and external programs. While we're doing this, we also want to learn from one another so that we can raise the capacity of programming that we are giving to our students to make sure that we are meeting their needs. We are indeed fortunate to have many partners, many of whom who are here with us in the room tonight, who have been doing this work in the district for a while, and we're happy to be able to learn from all the experiences that they've had. Turning now to our program goals, you'll see that our overarching goal is to support students through graduation and also the development and attainment of post-high school graduation goals. Not only do we want to establish these goals for them, we also want to help make sure that they have plans to achieve those goals. Research informs us that where mentoring has the impact is around we can decrease absenteeism and behavioral incidents, thereby increasing school culture and climate. We also have the ability to further connect with parents who are critical in supporting the success of students. In 15-16, our program goals were threefold with 3 different buckets of mentoring. The first bucket is the My Brother's Keeper School Success Mentor Initiative out of President Obama's Every Student, Every Day attendance campaign. This is a partnership between the US DOE and the White House. It's a mentoring program that is focused on students who are labeled as exhibiting chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% of the school year for any reason, regardless if it's excused or unexcused. At the end in Columbus, this means that a student can miss 18 days in a school year and they would be defined as exhibiting chronic absenteeism. That's nearly a month of school if you miss just 2 days a month. We know that chronic absenteeism is a leading cause of low student performance and eventual dropping out of school. And so it is something that we're trying to target nationwide. This particular program started the rollout in November of last year. The district was one of the first 10 districts to be selected in the initial cohort to roll out this model. This year, an additional 20 districts have joined. The focus of the program is really to build relationships with the student and the families to try to identify what the underlying cause of absenteeism is so that you can then put some interventions in place that are targeted to mitigate them circumstances so that the students are at school more often. So again, we are part of a nationwide network of these communities who are doing this work, and we're able to join with them, share our lessons learned, but also learn from their evidence-based practices. Last year, we piloted this program in 3 of our middle schools, Boys Prep, Sherwood, and Yorktown. We served a total of 75 students across the 3 schools, and on average, we saw 8.36 percentage point reduction in their absenteeism rate, which is significant given that we only had an opportunity to work with the students from about late February through May, given that we weren't even selected as a district until December. The second bucket of mentoring was the Senior Mentorship Program. This program You may know that principals keep a list of students who can graduate with some additional support. So in 5 of our high schools, students were selected from those lists. Those schools were Afrocentric, East, Linden, Marion Franklin, and Northland High Schools. We served 86 students. They met with external mentors 1 hour a week. And out of those 86 students, 74 crossed the stage by August 16. Now, that is not just due to mentoring. That's because of the great work that takes place in a school building, and we were able to come on board and help provide additional support. The third bucket of mentoring is the Community Connectors program. Community Connectors is a grant program administered by the Ohio Department of Education. Governor Kasich allocated some dollars so that statewide organizations could apply to provide mentorship programming to students in different districts. Last year, we had 14 Community Connector partners. Now, we're in a supervisory role. ODE is the ones who really take these applications, administer the applications, and make the grant-making decisions. The district does sign off, and last year we had 14 partners. These partners can deliver programming in a mix of ways. They can either be school-based, community-based, or a blend of both. And so last year we had 14 who served over 500 students. Oh, and I should say the program is in its second year, and actually there'll be a information session on this Thursday the 15th at Downtown High School from 6 to 8 p.m. for anyone who's interested in finding out how they can be a part of the third round application process. Now we're rolling to the 16-17 program information. So this year we set out to serve 1,000 students. Last year we served a total of 161 students in 8 schools. This year we set out to serve 1,000 students across 24 schools. So far we're serving about 1,015 students total. With the My Brother's Keeper program, this year we set out to maintain the programming in 3 middle schools at the 6th grade level, but also add a 7th grade component for students who were in the program last year who still needed this sort of support this year. So this year we're serving 89 6th and 7th grade students. At the 9th grade level, we spread the MBK program to serve 9th graders in all high schools. So we're currently serving 611 students across the 9th grade throughout the district. Then with the senior mentorship program, we set out to serve students in all 21 high schools. Currently, those programs have started in 15 of the 21 high schools. The others are slated to begin either later this month or by the end of January. Currently, we are serving 274 students with that program. And finally, with the Community Connectors, this year we gained additional partners, moving from 14 to 18 partners, and we will check in with them. We have a mid-year evaluation coming up and an end-of-year evaluation where we'll be able to share the numbers of students that they're serving at that time. In addition to our programmatic goals, we also set operational goals for this year. We really want to work with the buildings throughout the remainder of this year and next to increase their ability to handle the mentorship programs at their level. This is new for everyone, but we know that they'll be able to take this on as they see the great results. And we want to be at the district-wide level to help provide that TA and technical support and training that they need to deliver the best materials. With that, we'll be implementing monitoring and evaluation tools that we will look at monthly and meet with the site coordinators to discuss what those plans are to improve the program or maintain the great work that's taking place. We also want to create a learning community, as I stated earlier, with our external partners who are already in our buildings doing this work so we can leverage each other's work and serve more students. I should mention now that OSMI programs are not here to replace or supplant anybody's program. Rather, we are here to work alongside, hand in hand with them so that we can serve even more students. Finally, a big component of this work is really to streamline and leverage the internal-external partner mentoring, recruitment, and onboarding process. As you may have learned from other partners, mentoring recruitment is a beast. It is a beautiful thing when it comes together, but it can be a very long process. And so we're going to start a lot earlier this year so that we can be in a better place by the start of next year. So again, this just shows you our website where you would go to learn more about mentoring in general, but also where to sign up. And this is also where you can help. We're going to have an internal recruitment campaign and external. We would love to have your participation either as a mentor or maybe even a guest speaker if you're not able to meet with the students on a weekly basis. But we'd love for you to help us spread the word, maybe turn us on to other organizations who may want to provide mentors for our programming. The last thing I'd like to say, although we're still in our nascency, we're still in our infancy with this work, we have a long way to grow. Quality is of the utmost importance to us. I want to share with you that we are honored to have been named one of the 2017 Pillar Award recipients for community service based off of the work of Dr. Good, the administration, and particularly around mentoring. With that, I'm happy to field any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Are there questions or comments from board members? Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for this presentation, Dr. Jenkins. I guess my first question is how diverse is the MBK program? You said we serve about 1,015 students. About what is the makeup of that, demographically speaking?
Is it on? Okay, sure. So I will say, we do have the students' demographics. We haven't pulled them together in that way. One of the reasons is the list is fluid. As you know, students change schools. What we do plan to do, though, at the end of the year, after we have August graduation, we want to take that data both for the mentors and the mentees and boil it down and share it with you in the community. But I will say that just because it's labeled MBK, we haven't limited it to just males or just males of color. It's open to any student who exhibits chronic absenteeism. So anyone can qualify for the program.
I have one more.
Yes.
This question is for the superintendent. Is this initiative a part of the district's strategic communications plan? This seems like promotion of this program will go well hand in hand with, our communications efforts in the district. Have we created some alignments there at all?
We have, and actually I'll turn it back to Dr. Holly Jenkins, who can talk about the work she does with Scott Varner and his shop and how to coordinate those efforts.
So Scott has helped. I'm sorry, I'm not used to the delay. I'm used to just responding. So sorry about that. So Scott and his team have helped us. Our website is a great example of that. They also have helped us send out district-wide emails in terms of internal recruitment. But I will say that what we've realized is as much digital and on-paper communication we can have, this is a human experience. So you need to follow up face-to-face. So what we need to work on is identifying champions at different levels throughout the districts who can keep this on people's mind. And the same thing in the external community. So what you have is you don't want to bombard people with a weekly email. And I think what happens is it comes across, it looks like a great opportunity that you want to look into. And then like most of us, we click on that next email and there's a fire that needs to be put out and it's hard to come back to that. So we kind of want to create an echo chamber in our community, not only for our mentorship programs, but with other mentorship programs who are recruiting mentors, that this is a wonderful opportunity to give back. And as you heard from our mentors in the video, it's a wonderful way to receive as well from the great work that you're doing.
Board Member Hudson?
I wondered if you could elaborate on what did you find were the top causes of absenteeism?
So that's a great question. And even though there could be generalities in why folks are absent, it really comes down to what's going on in your household in the morning when it's time for you to go. Some of the reasons that you'll hear from many of our district leadership is that when it's dark and cold like it is now, students don't want to feel safe walking to the bus stop, or their parents may not feel safe. If you ride a bike to school, this weather isn't conducive to that. Students can live up to 2 miles away from their bus stop or from the school and they won't receive transportation because of transportation limitations. So that is a big one, actually, walking in the dark in the morning or waiting in the dark or walking home. However, if we uncover that, then maybe we could see if Ms. Hudson lives next door to Ms. Reyes, maybe they can stand at the bus stop together. Or maybe if Ms. Gibbs is dropping her kids off, maybe they can drop off one of Ms. Hudson's kids. So those are things that we can't really address the issue until we know specifically what it is. But once we have that, then we can dig in our toolkit. If it's something that the building can't handle, then we're happy to help find community partners that might be able to do that. But as we grow and we start to catalog this stuff, I imagine that at some point we'll have a pretty exhaustive list, but we'll also have a pretty exhaustive list of resources that we can go to handle these things more efficiently. So that's our goal, to be able to make that a more efficient process.
And if I could, just one other thank you. One other question on My Brother's Keeper. What's that? How long does that? What's the term of that grant? And what's the term of the grant, I guess, and what's the prospect for renewal?
Sure. So I know that most people in the community believe that there are dollars attached to My Brother's Keeper efforts, but currently there are not.
Oh no.
No, this is. They wrote out a model for us, which I was grateful for because it's actually happened on my 4th day on the job. So it's great to be connected to others who are embarking on this work too. But they wrote out really just a program model, not really any toolkits or trainings or how to get it done. So I'm just gracious to all of our district folks who have agreed to take this on.
So it's locally controlled in that sense, and we can keep marching forward with it then.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.
Board Member Gibbs?
And thank you for your presentation. I just have a few questions. In your rollout and in your expansion, I believe you said you had Champion, Sherwood, and the boys' school.
Boys Prep, Sherwood, and Yorktown.
In Yorktown. So my question is about the outreach to female students. And is there a place in this model for them to be served exclusively? And are we expanding that to Columbus City Prep for girls?
So this year, okay. So this year, I will say that when we did the pilot, we did do it in the 3 middle schools, but we also served seniors, and we wanted to make sure that we could do that in every building. With us being, again, trying to grow the program with quality, we went from 8 schools to 24 schools this year, and if we added the middle schools, it would be another 20-some schools. If a school comes to us and says that they're willing and they want to take this on, we're happy to help support that work. Just what we're focused on, though, from a programmatic standpoint, is at the high school level. So I want to make that perfectly clear. If any school comes to us and says, I have a great example. At Sherwood, Miss Christina Eiffel, who's now at LI at West Broad, leadership intern she was a leadership intern at Sherwood last year. She wants to start the program at her school for 5th graders. So she's actually doing that. We'll provide her with the materials, come out and help her with training. So if any school wants to take it on, we're happy to do that.
So even with that, because when you hear the term My Brother's Keeper, you don't necessarily think female. So how are you making sure that even with the senior outreach, we're making sure that we're going to serve the girl population as well, and that we have balanced efforts for both male and female? We know there's a lot of initiatives for young males in the community in general, but how are we making sure we have a balanced approach to serving both of our student populations?
Thank you. So both of our programs are open to all students, and actually at the senior level, it's a list that is kept by the high school administrator. That includes any student who can graduate. So that's male, female, and then the same thing at MBK, at the MBK programmatic level. Even though it's called My Brother's Keeper, again, we target any student who exhibits chronic absenteeism. That just happens to be the vehicle through which the model came to us, but we will serve anyone who exhibits that.
So it's more, you're going to go get them instead of waiting for them to come to you.
Right, so the students are identified. Now, we can't force students to be a part of anything, but the students are identified, and a big part of it is how it's presented. Some student populations, Stephen Gray can tell you, it needs to be presented as an opportunity for networking. For other groups, it's, I really need support. I know what I need help with, and I need an additional person. So it varies from student to student. The way that it's presented is everything, but it's voluntary, but we do have some criteria for which we target the students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Brown.
I just wanted to explore a little bit more the subject that Ms. Hudson brought up, and that is understanding the relationship between absenteeism and student performance, success, academic success. And this may be something that Dr. Good can weigh in on. But because in response to her question, you really didn't talk much about academic performance and success. Sure. Is a student who's struggling academically caused to be absent more often because they don't like doing it, they're frustrated, or is it the other way around, that if you're not there, you're going to perform poorly, you're not going to achieve? Or does it matter? Do we have to know which way is it, causation, which way it flows?
Sure, so thank you for your question, and I think it's both and. I think there are students who aren't performing well academically, and for that reason they don't want to come to school. And there's other reasons too, but at the same time, if you're absent often, you're more likely not to do so well in school. So mentoring is not the same thing as tutoring, although you could tutor your student if that's what you choose to do in your session, but that's not what we've recruited you to do. But certainly if you can assist in that way, please do. What I would say is that mentoring is more around the support, help you figure out how to navigate different circumstances. But if you're not here in the building, we can't teach you, we can't diagnose, we can't provide services. So the first order of business is to get you into the building. Now, I will say what research says is that although mentoring can help increase student attendance and also decrease behavioral incidents, by proxy, grades should improve just by the virtue of the fact that you're in the building. But that is not what mentoring aims to do. So I would never proclaim that mentoring is here to necessarily boost academic gains. It's more the social, emotional pieces that then can lead to academic gains, if that helps.
Okay. And one other question, just to clarify, and maybe it differs a little bit from one program to another in the 3 buckets, but is most of the mentoring focused on school-related or career-related kinds of activities as opposed to dealing with personal situations at home or personal crises that a student may be working through?
So it addresses both, actually. So for instance, all of our mentors will get, they sign releases, of course, but they will get access to students' report cards, their interims, their grades, any other relevant information that might be pertinent to the mentor helping the student navigate. That is not the sole intent, though. That's not anything that we want our mentors to talk to our kids about every single session. Kids know what they need to do to improve, so we don't want to focus on that. What our programs do, regardless, across the board, for the 3 buckets that we have, well, I can't speak for Community Connectors, for the 2 buckets that we control. Right. For those 2 buckets, our overarching focus is really post-high school graduation planning. Your goals, and do you have an action plan to achieve those goals? If you don't know what those goals are, let's work on it together. So what we're working on and what we want to roll out in January is we'll have some training in some of the schools. We're piloting some training around this. But what we want to roll out is some goal-setting activity sheets that our mentors and mentees work on together, where if you don't know what your interests are, we identify it together. Once we know what that is, we map out the plan for you. And so then school becomes a part of that process. You can't get to where you're going if you don't graduate, but we don't have to talk about that aspect every single day. Back to the social, emotional question that you asked, the more personal, that's very relevant. We don't want to have a relationship that is so scripted that if a kid comes in really upset or stressed out, that they don't have room or space to speak about that piece and seek guidance. So it's really a balancing effect, and that's really the mentor's job to kind of help figure out what direction is the student headed and how do we help them get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer, please note the arrival of Board Member Peretti. Board Member Peretti?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I apologize for being late. I really want a really good point. I didn't really think about the fact that the student has to accept to be mentored and the whole host of dynamic issues that's presented with that. I guess my question was, we talk about early childhood education, we talk about offering access to all 3rd and 4th graders. That would be our end goal. And knowing mentoring is boots on the ground sort of program. What would be our sort of end goal, our end sort of goal when it comes to what sort of wide array of services that we cover? How much, essentially? Like how many schools would we want to cover, area, and especially, and I think you talked about this when you talked about champions in our city. How do we sustain that when we get that gain? Are sort of my questions.
Sure. So your first question is in terms of ultimate goal, how many students, how many schools? So I think that Dr. Good's vision is that every student has an opportunity regardless of the school that they go to. We won't be there next year or probably the year after, but that's what we're growing toward. So that's the answer to your first question. And the second one, could you remind me again, please?
Sustainability.
Of the champion? Just the program? Is that me?
Efforts in general. You know,
Gotcha. Okay. I just didn't know if it was safe to talk yet. Okay.
Year after year after year,
Sure.
are we constantly looking for new folks? How does that sort of look?
Thank you for
in
the
other cities?
clarification. So we've actually asked our mentors to stay for 1 year. If people sign up, we want them to stay for the entire school year. We hope that they stay the next year, but the reality is that even if they stay, there's a lot of mobility within our population. And on top of, and so that means if you're mentoring a student at Whetstone and say next year they're at West, it might be difficult for that mentor to follow that student if they're coming 1 hour a week from their workplace to do so. But what we do again is ask you to make that 1 year commitment. At the end of that year, we'll have a match closing ceremony that will probably take place in late April, honestly, because May's such a busy time for schools. Although the matches will continue to meet through May, we'll have this closing ceremony which says to the student and the mentor they get to thank each other. There'll be a ceremony of making sure that that happens in an appropriate fashion. And the mentee will know that they will be in a program next year, but they may not have the same mentor. If they do and they get Mr. Peretti, that's icing on the cake. So that's one piece of it with external mentors. I will say with My Brother's Keeper, we're using internal mentors at this time. And those are folks who, anyone who works in the building is assigned to that building. So that could be the secretary, the custodian, many of whom already have great relationships with a lot of the students. This is just being a little bit more intentional about those relationships. So those people will be, and the reason why we use internal mentors for that program is if you don't come to school very often or as often as we like you to, that person is in the building whenever you are there. And so that's why we've chosen to go that route so far.
Board Member Reyes?
So Dr. Jenkins, as you mentioned earlier, we obviously would love to have a wider net and make sure or ensure that all of our students have mentors. We've had wonderful partners, City Year, Big Brothers Big Sisters, etc. How are we coordinating the current programs that you mentioned with those programs to ensure that we're not doubling up? But at the same time, I also want to talk about where are we also looking at possibilities where we need to double up, where you may need somebody that has an expertise in a certain discipline. You know, I was a big sister with Big Brothers Big Sisters. There were certain things that I don't have the skill set, so sometimes we reached out to another mentor. So that's kind of two questions. How do we coordinate to ensure that students have not doubling up, and how do we ensure that we are doubling up in those instances when we have to?
Thank you. Thank you. So at the high school level, we have assistant principals are the site coordinators. So the assistant principal in charge of the senior class is a person who is a site coordinator for the senior mentorship program, the internal one. And that way when we talk with them, speak with them about what the program could look at like in their school, we talk about that because we have gotten that question. Well, these students would be on our list, but they're already a part of Project Mentor. That's great. We're not trying to pull that student. I'm sure there's another student who can be on the list. So we're trying to coordinate in that way to make sure that we're not doubling up, you know, taking a student away from a program that's working for them. I think your second point is well taken in that, you know, there's always going to be a balance that we have to strike between making sure that a student maybe has multiple mentors to meet all of their needs versus trying to make sure that every student has a relationship. And that's just going to be a balance. I will tell you that with Cheryl's team, there's a tiered effect and a tiered approach. So there could be an instance one day where a mentee has an external mentor and then maybe some other service that they're receiving from the school district. And that's fine too. But I think that what we do is have to prioritize the students that we're looking at, look at the other programming that's available in the school so it looks different student by student and building by building.
So as a follow-up to that, I recall several years ago, the company I was working for, we had the opportunity where students were brought to our workplace to increase participation of the adults, predominantly to help them through I think it was our accountants were meeting with our students who are struggling with the math portion of the OGT. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you're looking, or maybe someone hasn't mentioned it, is that something that we're looking at to possibly reach out to experts that can't take that hour and a half that it would take to drive to a school and then park and then the 40 minutes that you spend in the other half hour to come, because not all buses are that flexible.
Right, absolutely. So I think there are the beauty of this is that we can be very creative, right? The danger is that we want to maintain quality and not take on too much at one time so that we do it well. I will say, ideally, I would love to see us get to the point where once we identify what those students' interests are, then maybe we can link them up with a mentor who can help them meet their internship hours in that area of interest. And Peggy and her team do great work with community partnerships, so I'm sure that we can come up with something that allows that. And so we're open to any and all possibilities. Just at this time, we're still trying to get our solid foundation so that we can run.
And two more very small questions. Have you thought about remote learning, remote mentoring?
Great question. So remote mentoring gets a little bit tricky just because you're now communicating outside. I will say this, all of our programs that utilize external mentors, they sign documents, so do the parents of our mentees, so do the mentees, stating that the relationship is relegated to the supervised time. Now, if you're a mentor and you want to come to a school-sponsored event and your student is there, say your student's on a basketball team, you can come, but your student can't ride with you. We don't allow text, social media connection, anything like that, because it's very difficult for the district to monitor that. I will tell you, though, that with I Know I Can, I'm sure you're familiar with them. They are one of the Community Connector recipients for this year, and they do have a virtual mentorship program that they're piloting. So for folks who cannot come to the building one time a week, that's another opportunity for them to engage. And so we share that. First, I try to hook people into the building, and if that doesn't work, then we will refer them to our great community partner.
And I see a lot of that, especially when we don't have experts. For example, being bilingual, a lot of times you can't find a lot of bilingual mentors that would be available for that student struggling with the Spanish class. You know, maybe I couldn't get away, but I could definitely, if there was 2 or 3 students over a lunch hour, we could go over some sort of lesson plan. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. And then lastly, I want to touch a little bit again on, I guess, a combination of the name of My Brother's Keeper. If we're not receiving funding and we're just using the model, I would say that we should consider maybe a way to ensure that our girls know that it's an option, and I would suggest maybe adding something to the name, or so that's just a request or an idea.
Okay,
so
thank
you don't have to respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President?
I just wanted to make sure we took the opportunity to at least acknowledge several of our external partners and others who may be involved with us internally here. I've seen several folks in the audience, PALS, City Year, Big Brothers Big Sisters. I just love if we get the opportunity just to have them stand and be acknowledged. Is that okay, Mr. President?
That's right.
So actually that'll be everyone that's here.
I was going to say.
Because all of us tonight are mentors.
That's why they're here.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Gibbs?
Thank you. To pick up where Board Member Reyes left off, just a quick question. How do we accommodate students with special needs and students with disabilities in the mentoring program? And how do we approach their mentorship?
Is it one yet? Okay. So I will say, you know, again, from the list that we're working from in the buildings, it's the incoming, the way that we pulled the data this year was the incoming 5th graders into those 3 middle schools, and then the incoming 9th graders into those high schools. I do not know off the top of my head if we have any students with special needs in those groups. I know that we do have some students who may have IEPs, but there's a big range. I'm not sure if you have a certain population in mind. We do have a mentorship program at Scioto too. It's a very small one, but we thought it was critical to make sure that they have access to mentors as well. So that is something that, you know, we're taking into consideration, and that's where we are today with that.
Okay. I would also echo Board Member Reyes's suggestion to find a name that may be more inclusive of female students. So I know it's My Brother's Keeper, but if there could be something that they can feel like they are intentionally a part of it and not necessarily an add-on, I think it may provide them a little more sense of identity within the program.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. I just want to reiterate that as a district, we did not select that name. We were selected to be a part of a program. So I just want to make that clear. But thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peretti?
Real quick, and with mentoring, are we seeing surges in other things like I Know I Can? I know we touched on that briefly, but are we seeing those same students starting to take advantage of those services and programs as well?
So again, I think that's going to depend on the student. A lot of our programs have criteria for the students that they serve. And so again, our criteria may overlap, but where they are, there's always room for us to take additional students. So I think that what we want to get to is a point where we're all working together and coordinated.
All right, if there are no other questions from board members, Dr. Jenkins, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Thank you very much. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, indeed, and I don't want to diminish Vice President Cole's recognition of the mentor groups, but we intentionally invited our district partners who offer mentorship in one form or another. So literally everyone in this room would have needed to stand to be recognized, but you'll have an opportunity for our board to meet each of you in the next segment. Thank you, Dr. Hunley Jenkins, and also Greg Gillum and Steve Stevenson. Extraordinary work, organic. The fact that we were recognized as one of 10 districts nationwide to participate in this pilot and create a template for other districts. I think it speaks volumes of the outcomes we're seeing. So next we're going to look at the work of our Office of Student and Family Engagement, and much like our Safety and Security team, the Office of Student and Family Engagement is tasked with the responsibility to a variety of student challenges each day. Proactively, this office is our champion of creating and improving school climates to be more inclusive, respectful, and empowering. Reactively, they're the first responders to address the social and emotional needs of not only our students but our staff. When it comes to these efforts, Columbus City Schools has one of Ohio's best social work teams in place, and I have data to verify that. West High School social worker Joy Hostetler was named Ohio's best school social worker of the year last year by the Ohio School Social Work Association, and our very own director, Cheryl Ward, earned the title of Ohio's best friend of school social work. So we're going to hear more now from Director Ward. Cheryl.
Good evening. To President Baker, Vice President Cole, to members of the board, it is certainly an honor to be standing before you representing an amazing group of people underneath the Department of Student and Family Engagement. Within the Department of Student and Family Engagement, we seek to provide services that address the academic and social and emotional needs of our students. We want to assist parents in understanding district requirements and developing their student in a holistic manner. And we also work with our community partners to provide our students and families with services beyond the school day, all while developing a climate and culture of inclusion, respect, and the belief that each of our students have the potential to achieve greatness. Notice the acronym. I thought that was point for tonight. Our acronym for Student and Family Engagement is SAFE, just a little tidbit that you can walk away with this evening. What you are looking at now is the composition of our department and the breadth and the depth of our department. Our Climate and Culture Manager and our Climate and Culture Coordinator are working specifically with our 69 peak instructional assistants. In that work, we are also working to align our peak program with our PBIS model. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And really around that is to be able to help young people increase their responsibility for their behaviors, to reinforce desired behaviors, and to be able to assist them in helping them to self-regulate. Our parent and community engagement coordinator works with our 48 parent consultants in the district. And the parent consultants really serve as a liaison between the school and home to be able to help parents engage in their children's education so that they are aware and can continue to help them advance and succeed. This coordinator also works at a district level to make sure that we have parent representation and engagement in our district-wide initiatives. Our PBIS district coordinator has the amazing task of providing PBIS framework to the entire district. She is doing a phenomenal job. Our climate and culture manager and coordinator and parent engagement coordinator also assist in these efforts. The goal of the department is really to create a holistic approach as we are working with our students and our families, as we are identifying social and emotional needs, being able to link them to community providers, and be able to get them the assistance both within the district and externally if necessary. Our school counselors and our school social workers. Our school counselors work on the academic, college and career, and social and emotional development of our young people. Our school social workers provide service in mental and emotional disorders, crisis interventions, linkages, and referrals. There are areas that our counselors and our social workers overlap. They both provide individual and group work to our young people. They both are engaged in building-wide initiatives, and they both work in collaboration with community partners. One of the points I wanted to bring emphasis to is what the acronym called MTSS, Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. That is a national model. We went to that about 2 years ago. We used to refer to it as our SAIL team, but the national model of multi-tiered systems of support is really a covering. One of the things that you will see is a representation that we have chosen in terms of an umbrella. And when you think about the use of an umbrella, that you utilize an umbrella when you need covering. I used it for snow today, so if anyone saw my green umbrella with snow, I used it as a covering today. But in that process, it really is a multi-tiered approach to understand what are the individual needs of the student and what are the needs of the building. And based on that information and based on that assessment, we begin to put in supports. What you may hear is called RTI, which is response to intervention. Those supports on the academic side, and then our PBIS system are supports that occupy the behavior side. But collectively together, we recognize that there may be young people who have behavioral challenges because they have academic concerns, or there are academic concerns that yield behavior challenges. And so our job as staff is to identify the needs of the student and be able to talk in a comprehensive way about what needs and how do we meet those needs. PBIS is a framework for systems to identify needs and develop strategies to make sure that we are working to reduce barriers, to develop social emotional strength, and to create a climate and culture where every young person feels like they're validated. Sometimes you will see our pyramid. We use this often in PBIS, but it also recognizes tiered interventions. There are 3 tiers in the model, and so you will see that as evidence. Tier 1 is considered universal interventions, Tier 2 are more targeted interventions, and Tier 3s are considered intensive. And so depending on the needs of our young people, all young people will receive universal interventions. But if there are more targeted needs that we need to meet, then we will go up the scale and we will streamline those interventions to make sure that our young people are successful. Within this process, it is not possible to do it without partners. And we have an amazing group of partners. Many of them are represented here this evening. Some are not here, but certainly impact our day-to-day work. We have school-based partners who work within the school building during the school day. We have after-school partners who work after school. And we also have the ability to make, in that tiered process, referrals. So a young person who may be at Tier 3 may require a referral to an outside agency in order to get more ongoing support. And we certainly have community agencies as well as our mental health providers who assist us in that process. So as we do this work on a daily basis, we as a district often experience tragedy or crisis. And so the next few slides that I will walk you through is really the work of the district care team. Dr. Goody alluded to that in the article that was written in the Columbus Dispatch. The care team is made up of my social workers and my school counselors who work collectively and are called upon, quite honestly, at a moment's notice and most times to be able to provide support to any of our buildings. What you will walk through or what you will see is a before, a during, and an after. When a situation occurs, I typically get a call from either senior leadership, executive director, or principal. They describe to me the situation, and if there is a need for district care support, so let me take a little bit of time to explain when we come in. There are situations that occur during buildings or at buildings many times during the year, and some buildings are able to handle that within their building structure. To the extent that the level of tragedy exceeds the building's ability to handle that within their structure and still maintain the work day or the educational day, that is when my team gets called in so that we can help the staff maintain their day-to-day function but still be able to provide support to the students and to the families and to the staff who are experiencing the tragedy and or the crisis. Once I get the call, we have some conversation around what that looks like, the potential level of response that is needed. Once I assess that, I then call my care team members. Care team members can be any counselor or social worker that I call, depending on where the building is and the level of the side of town. Once that is activated, we get to the building. I will typically, or my point person, sometimes we get called to multiple buildings. And so what I have established is what we call a care team committee. So there's always a point person at a building. And so that point person, whether it's myself or another care team member, comes, they have conversation with the administration, we talk through the plan. If we need to have conversations with the staff, we do that. And then we just put our plan in place and we implement the support throughout the day. We also make sure that we are debriefing with the administration throughout the day. So they still have a pulse on their building, but they also have a pulse on what's happening within the care team and what that looks like. At the end of the day, if their staff need to process, we offer the ability to process. And then we also have opportunity to debrief. We debrief with the staff so that they know what we have done, and then we begin to set the plans for the next day. There are often times that we do go back to the building on the next day if, as we are assessing kids and working with young people and we need to call in additional support, that's where some of our community providers comes in, and we will have conversations with parents and we will talk through what we're doing. There's often a notification that comes out during that time that gets sent home to parents. So parents are aware that there were people in the building who provided support to their child. As we do this work, one of the things that is consistent is that we cannot do this work alone. And I am honored to be able to direct an extremely amazing group of young people and some of us a little older people in my department of longevity. That's the word that I choose now, is longevity, to be able to work together, to be better and to be stronger. Gwendolyn Brooks says we are each other's harvest and we are each other's business and we are each other's magnitude and bond. So our commitment as the Department of Student and Family Engagement is to provide service to our students and families as we build a stronger district, stronger families, and a stronger community, working to ensure that every student reaches his or her full potential, prepared to take their rightful place in our global world. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ward. Are there questions? Board Member Peretti?
Well, this note passing. Thank you very much for the presentation. I guess I had two scenarios in mind. One scenario is a child gets involved in some sort of incident, maybe PBIS steps in, it could be a fight, could be anything, and maybe there was some sort of mental or behavioral health issue that was identified, and then outside resources are recommended to be followed up. What does that actually look like? How does the follow-up look like? How do we know as a school, as our community, that this student is still receiving, that recommended treatment? And I guess the other question I had was the same student but not involved in an incident that may be suffering from mental or behavioral health issues. How do we sort of identify that? How does that sort of happen? And again, how is that follow-up concluded, and how do we know that those appropriate safe steps are being taken?
Each building has what we call an MTSS team. And so the job of the team, well, there's also PBIS teams at the building level, but on an MTSS team, the job of the team is to recognize where are our students who may be struggling, whether that's academically, whether that's behaviorally. And through the assessment that I referred to earlier, we are able to identify the service needs. We have partners, and we have contracts with many partners, where if we do identify that there's a mental health service need, we'll make the referral. And we'll have one of my staff through the support program, whether it's counselor or social worker, make that initial contact with the family, discuss. Many times, though, there may be a meeting that's called in, whether my support staff are present and the parent's already there, and we're having that conversation there. If we're having that conversation with a parent and they're already there, we will ask for is a release of information to be able to secure the referral process in order to be able to seek treatment. To your question about how do we know, we have constant contact with our providers. And so we do ask for parents to sign releases so that we have the ability to know. We don't need to know all the ins and outs of what's taking place in a counseling relationship, but we do have the ability to know and recognize, are they still involved? Are they still working? And being able to have a communication flow so that we can help provide information to that provider in terms of how this young person is doing. Are there still concerns? And then also sometimes there are monthly meetings that take place around that student to make sure that from a building level as well as from mental health services that we're providing the best support. You're welcome.
Other questions from board members? Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ward, for this presentation. Can you remind us what increases we expect to see in staff regarding your department? This is such a critical piece in terms of the social emotional well-being of our children. We're making a significant investment in this area.
The levy has allowed for 25 additional social workers.
And that's over the next 5 years?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Has allowed for
Loving
25, yes.
Any other questions? Ms. Gibbs?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just have a few questions around, one, the amazing work that your team does. And I know people, and we hear a lot about what we heard at Northland, the first part of the incidents that occur, but you are the team that comes in to help put the pieces and put the people all back together again. So my question is to you and to your team, what type of training and professional development do your counselors get or need to be able to stay current with the new or what's going on in these types of incidents? For example, who knew last week with the issue at Ohio State, you know, before it was a school fight, but now we have just full-blown major incidents. So how is your staff preparing to respond to the students in those instances?
As it relates to the care team?
Training, CEUs, PD.
So we actually work with Ohio Health. Ohio Health Hospice has an organization that deals with school-based, and that is what they are trained in. They're trained in trauma and grief, and so we work quite collaboratively with them. We actually just was trained in the committee group, and we brought them in. We received resources. We have materials that we send out that actually comes from them, and so we have that conversation. We also have community providers that we will bring in to have conversation around what do we do, how do we respond, and then we continue to provide information within our own PDs and reminding around not just the incident and response to grief, but what leads up to that, or even situations where young people may feel that they're isolated or not included, and how do we make sure that we are providing services in a proactive way that people feel included. So even if they have a young person or a friend struggling with a variety of issues, that we are constantly creating around our PBIS model, around inclusion, around restorative justice, around social justice, an environment that people feel that they can come share and talk so that we can help hopefully prevent some tragedies before they happen, but when they do occur, making sure that we're ready to go.
Thank you for that. We've heard often that there are communities and there are students who have become somewhat numb to trauma, and that they see it so often that they have just a response of, oh well. How do you tackle that, and how do you help students, or the instances where that community or that school may have experienced a number of incidents? How do you help them through that and maintain or create a sense of empathy?
So I think one falls into recognizing and allowing young people to own the space that they're in without judgment. And I think recognizing, and my staff recognizing, that we do have many young people who experience trauma or trauma responses because of the level of trauma that they experience every day. And I think being educated to recognize that a trauma response or a trauma experience is not just one event. That we have young people who are experiencing chronic trauma in terms of food insecurity, or in terms of situations that may be in the community or situations that may be in the home. We certainly are at an advantage because we have many community partners and people who are here today who work with us and alongside of us at a building level and at district levels, who are trained in a variety of trauma-informed practices. And so there are those agencies that we look to and we consult with to say, help us here, or we maybe connect them at the building level. It doesn't necessarily necessarily have to be our department doing the work, but we certainly, if a building reaches out to us, can connect them to the right partner to be able to help them either individually with a young person or maybe collectively with their building.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you very much, Director Ward, for the amazing work you and your team do.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Ward. Appreciate that. Similar to our previous work session, we thought it might be helpful now for the board to have an opportunity to engage and interact with others. There are many others who contribute largely to our safety measures, so we've established another gallery walk. You will be asked to move from station to station, hearing in greater detail about the services of all those people that have gathered tonight, many of our partner organizations and the nonprofits who provide direct support to our students. We've attempted to divide up our groups into 3 overarching categories. They're not exclusive, but they were kind of a convenient way to place them. There's after-school programs, there are mentoring programs, and there are those that provide direct social, emotional, and health services. There aren't any set time limits for this particular gallery walk. We just ask that each board member and our audience that have come this evening to participate try to make it to every station. We'll be providing updates on the time throughout the walk. And we've allocated how much time, JC, for this? About 30 minutes for this. After we've completed the gallery launch, then we'll come back to this space and we'll have 6 tables. And you can choose, and the audience can choose any of those roundtable discussions. And at each table there will be 1 board member, and that board member will be joined by some staff members and with other community members. And in those roundtables, we'll be thinking about other risks and threats to community safety and some of the potential partnering opportunities that might address those gaps that we've identified. So before we begin the gallery walk, though, I do need to take a moment to kind of again reiterate Vice President Cole's deep appreciation to the partners that are here tonight. There are a lot of familiar faces in the rooms, a lot of names I know, in part because of the long-standing collaborations that these organizations represent. Truly, Columbus City Schools' success, the success of Cheryl Ward's team and Dr. Keyshawn Jenkins' team, is a direct result of your successes and for your years of cooperation and partnership. We're very, very grateful. Thank you so very much. So I imagine we'll take about 6 minutes to get into place in the room. Adjacent to this one, it's the gymnasium, so we'll let our partners go first, and if the staff members that are supporting each board member would kind of introduce yourselves to them so that when we come back to this room, you're prepared for where you're going to be. We'll be over, partners, in about 5 minutes.
And I've been lucky and blessed that, I've worked at the YMCA, I worked at City
So this year we have really limited the hours that we're working. So we actually have, this is our student outreach services. We are actually contracted with and I think that's just
guys, what's going on? How are you? Sorry about that. How you been? 2 minutes. I'm doing well. I'm doing real well.
Nice to meet you.
We'll see you along. What's that? UC. That's right. How you been? Doing what? Did you go to UC? Ninth floor. We live on the same floor. Right. Uh-oh. Yeah.
Right? So we really want to increase their own capacity so that we don't have to. Our picture is enough.
You won't be there, so we're just getting right back into it here.
Well, welcome to Ohio.
Thanks.
It is something to get used to.
That's okay. All right.
And those experiences for the children, and also for them. I think you guys have heard that parents.
Even that, maybe a seminar where all of these agencies actually present.
And again, not just students, but families.
Transportation to make sure our families can access it. I have convened a broader conversation, bringing those other reports to the table. Yeah, I have.
First of all, before I share the results of the voting, I'd like to, on behalf of the Board of Education and Dr. Good, want to say thank you very, very much for your participation this evening. As we all know, this is a very important issue, not only to the Board of Education, but to our entire community. And for you guys to spend the amount of time you did with us this evening to talk about this very important issue, we really do appreciate it. So, with that, as you can tell, the top 3 gaps identified, one being in the after-school programming, which is after-hour recreational opportunities, summer, holidays, and weekends. We see 12 votes. On the mentoring side are the other 2 of the top 3 gaps. Number 4 being opportunity awareness and student self-efficacy. We see 12 votes as well. And then last but not least, under mentoring is transportation and social borders. And so our staff will now go back and identify how we're going to tackle these top 3 issues moving forward. And so again, thank you all very much for identifying these 3 gap areas and for giving us the direction and guidance that we need to move forward. Now the other gaps won't fall off the table. We will continue to identify items and be able to work on those as well. Okay? So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Good, who will come and give us a few brief remarks.
So thank you, first of all, for your participation. And I know for a lot of us, not a lot of surprises here, but affirmation of what those issues are, where we need to identify partners to help us find community solutions. Absolutely. The other things that didn't rate in the top 3 are not things that will fall off the list, but I think we all want to make certain we bite off what we can chew and do some proof points to demonstrate that when we align our resources and our interests, that we can produce something that has a value proposition. We can measure the effect size and then scale and sustain that. So these are the 3 that this community has told us are the most important. What President Baker and I talked about this afternoon was taking now the month of January, because people are pretty much done with the month of December now, and really bringing together those partners and developing some action plans and bringing those forward to report out in February so that we again can kind of get the blessing of our partners that this is the direction we want to move, and these are people that are committed to those solutions. So if you're in agreement with that, I'm going to give the program back to President Baker, unless there are questions that I can answer for us at this point. Do you want to bring in school tomorrow? That's usually the question I get. It doesn't matter what the topic is. Yes, we are.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I just want to add my gratitude. Thank you all for being here this evening. It's a snowy night. I know you could have been elsewhere. But thank you very much for your input. It is critically important, as the superintendent indicated, we will take all of this input and we will, administration will put it all together and present it
probably a Tesla, I imagine. So shortly, I'm going to call for a motion from one of my colleagues, after which we will recess into executive session to address some personnel matters. After that motion, you are all free to go home. The board will officially adjourn out of executive session later this evening after we conclude that portion of our meeting. So, unless you have anything else, Mr. Superintendent, I'll ask Mr. Peretti to offer a motion.
All right, Mr. President, a motion per Ohio Revised Code 122.22 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public official.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Again, everyone, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Safe trip home. Thank you.